Today we'll be going through my round 18 AFL tips and predictions, but last week we did get a total of 9 out of 9 for round 17. The first time this year we managed to get this done, which I'm very happy about because it didn't seem like I was going to get there as the rounds kept progressing and my form kept on getting worse. But 9 out of 9, we'll go through the tips, top 2% as well. And I was at this game, Richmond v Sydney, and the margin that I tipped was 7, and I'm pretty sure Richmond got one more goal very late, so this could have easily been a perfect round without a single margin lost. But I was only 6 points off, was still pretty good. I tipped the Tigers, of course. I tipped the Pies to beat the Dogs. I tipped the Lions to beat the Eagles, the Giants to beat the Hawks. The D's tipped the Saints. Port I went to go and beat the Suns, the Cats to beat North, and these are the two games that honestly could have seriously affected my tips. Thought the Bombers at Marvel, they're a better side there, and then Carlton, just you can't have a lot of faith in Freo, and Carlton seem to be going a little bit better. Their form-wise, they seem to be slightly back on track. So I decided, yeah, let's do that, and we got 9 out of 9, which I'm extremely happy about. Now, for the big calls in the first game between Richmond and Sydney, I said that Toby Nankervis would record 50 or more hitouts. He recorded the 33 as well as a suspension. The Dogs v Collingwood game, I said that the Dogs would be up at three-quarter time. However, they were trailing by 4 goals. They're up at halftime and quarter time, but three-quarter time, the Pies definitely got on top. Now, I was extremely off for this one. Brisbane v West Coast. I said that Charlie Cameron would kick 6 or more goals, and not only did he not score any goals, but neither did Joe Danaher. That was really weird, just in a game that I thought the two would dominate. GWS v Hawthorn, I predicted the Giants would have 15 or more inside 50s over the Hawks. They only recorded 5 extra inside 50s, so pretty poor start with my big calls so far. The next one I was so close on. I said that both sides would score 75 or less, and in the last minute of the game, essentially, Christian Petrarca kicked his 4th goal to score 79 for them. So another one incorrect there. Put out a late Gold Coast. I thought that the Power would lead for the entirety of the game, but it was actually the Suns that led for the majority of that first half, which got that one incorrect. In Cats v North Melbourne, I said that the Cats would score under 100, and you could tell that wasn't going to happen after quarter time. They obviously ended up scoring 125. Essendon v Adelaide, I said there'd be 9 or more lead changes, but I didn't predict that Essendon to be as dominant as they were in that game. They got off to a really hot start and they just carried it on from there. Really good first half, particularly from them. And the last game, I said that Paddy Cripps would have 2 or more goals and 30 or more touches. He didn't score any goals and only recorded the 29. So that was a terrible round of mine for the big calls. Also for tipping, 9 out of 9, but terrible for big calls, 0 out of 9. And we all know which punishment got the most likes. It was certainly the AFL GOAT HQ one. And that was for Mum to do my footy tips for a week. I'm filming this currently at a time where I can't get her to do the tips. So probably get it done next week as well. And also I did film another punishment. And that was one from last week where I went to the MCG with a sign that said West Coast 2023 AFL Premiers. West Coast for Premiers.
Are invited to
West Coast for Premiers. What do you reckon? Not happening?
Yeah,
you sure?
Please ensure you
Sorry?
3,023.
Go the Eagles. What do you reckon? What do you reckon? Yes?
Preach.
Up the West Coast Eagles.
Alright, West Coast, what do you reckon about this time, mate?
I reckon they're going to win.
Alright, let's get right into round 18 for my tips. We've only got like another 6-7 rounds to go, so not too long to go in the season. We start off on the Thursday night between the Swans and the Dogs at the SCG. The Swans are currently favourites heading into this matchup, even though they are 15th on the table and the Dogs are 7th. But it kind of doesn't feel like the Swans are a 15th place side. It's just because of how even the competition is. Like their percentage still is pretty good of 111. Again, on the weekend on the Thursday last week, they certainly could have gotten the chocolates in that one. They were up by as much as I think 26 points, especially in that first half. They just seemed to get on top of the game, but Richmond gradually got their way back into the contest, and they kicked I think the last 3 or 4 goals of the game. It was a pretty close finish, but the Tigers kicked away with the last 2 in the last couple minutes, which was a little bit disappointing for the Swans because I still don't think their form in the last month has been too disappointing. They've been in all games competitively wise, but they just haven't been able to pick up those results, which sees them pretty much outside any chance of making finals. I think the finals race can pretty much say goodbye to the Swans unless they go on a massive run, win their next 6 or the next 7. The Dogs as well, I thought they were alright. They certainly started the game like a house on fire, and we thought, geez, they've certainly started the Pies here. I think they kicked the first 3 goals of the game. I genuinely thought that they could possibly stay in front for all the game if they just kept on going. But obviously, as Collingwood do best, they always fight their way back into the game. The Dogs just sort of ran out a bit of energy in a way and just allowed Collingwood to get on top, particularly in the midfield. They started the game off well, they finished the game off well, but in those second and third quarters, the Collingwood were just way too strong, and I think they recorded like 6 or 7 consecutive goals in a row, so certainly wasn't a good patch for the Dogs, and they seem to do it too often where they concede consecutive goals. I do have a little bit more faith though in Sydney, just because it is at the SCG, and I'm not sure on the Dogs' form away from home. At the SCG, they've never really been the strongest side. I think Sydney can really play the ground to their advantage, and I think they can win the contest. So I'm actually going to do the Swans here in not an upset. It's really a 50-50 game, I believe, but I think Sydney can get the job done. And get the job done by, I'll go 3 goals, 18 points. My big call, Jamari Ugle-Hagan and Aaron Norton combined for 3 or less goals. Next up, at the MCG, we've got Melbourne and Brisbane. Now, it's interesting because the Ds have been really shaky in the last 6-7 weeks, whereas Brisbane have been, well, extremely good. After that loss against Hawthorn, they've really done not much wrong at all with 4 pretty good wins. Obviously, against West Coast, we all expected them to get the win, and I didn't even think they were that good, to be honest, Brisbane. It was just a bit of West Coast, being in the contest for a little bit longer, and Brisbane, I don't know, obviously just taking it lightly, that they weren't going to really be bothered in trying to smash the West Coast Eagles by a record margin. They got the 82-point win at the end of the day, but a couple of their key players like Cameron and Danaher didn't even score goals, which I thought was quite surprising. And Melbourne, well, they got the win over the Saints. They were just the better side in terms of, taking their chances, efficiently going inside 50. But I did really think, if you watch that game, that St Kilda were on top for a lot of the contest and the stats. I mean, we won the midfield, we won the inside 50s, we won a lot of the key stats, but when it came to actually, getting goals and scoreboard pressure, we weren't able to do so because Stephen May had just a really good game. We just kept kicking it to them, and it's always the same story for St Kilda, and intercept defenders doing really well for the opposition club. Melbourne, very handy win. I don't think their form has been that great either, because I didn't even think they were that great against the Saints. A lot of drop marks, a lot of mistakes. It is at the MCG, and we all know Brisbane's track record there is very poor. They've only won 1 of the last 14. Eventually these sort of streaks have to come to an end. I feel like this could be a really critical game for the Lions to sort of solidify their chances again by winning one at the MCG. They did do that last year in the semis to break that streak, and I think they can get it done again, because I just think form-wise Brisbane have just been a lot better. Just have been better, and I think you want to back in a little bit of form instead of backing in the home ground advantage, because I think Brisbane, they'll find a way to get this win. In my opinion, I might be silly with this call, but I'm going to go Brisbane by 12, and they'll get off to a really hot start. I predict that they'll kick 6 of the first 9 goals of the game. We head to the Saturday games at the MCG. We start off with Collingwood and Freo. Well, should be a pretty straightforward tip, to be honest with you. The Pies, they got a good win against the Dogs. A really good win, to be honest with you, because their backs were against the walls, but then they just turned things around with like a 57, 60-point almost turnaround in the second and third quarters. They sort of let it slip in the last, to be fair, but the Dogs, you sort of had a feeling would come back, which they did, so respect to the Dogs. But not too many worries for Collingwood, because I thought that was a pretty impressive win, only playing like 2 good quarters of footy. And obviously Fremantle were extremely disappointing again on the weekend. It was almost as bad as that loss against the Giants. Conceding the first 4 of the game, you almost felt like then, that the game was pretty much done. And it's just another issue for Fremantle. They're really terrible starts to games. Again, we saw that against Carlton. I didn't get to watch much of the game, but at times, Freo were just applying no pressure, and Carlton really were doing whatever they wanted, which I thought was really concerning for them. So, you can put a line through Freo's season as well, and you're not going to expect them to win this game. I know Freo do have a knack of beating, the better sides at the MCG, like, for example, Melbourne. But Collingwood is a different side, a different task. And, yeah, I'll be extremely shocked if the Dockers are even in the game in the last quarter. I think Collingwood will get a good start, a hot start like they normally do, and they'll get the job done by 42 points with a big call. The Dockers are goalless in any quarter. And next up, we've got Gold Coast and St Kilda at Heritage Bank. The Saints are $2.50 underdogs here, but I think that's a bit of a stretch, to be honest with you, because we normally have a good record against the Gold Coast Suns. We haven't, I think, lost to them since 2016 or 2015, I like to say. So we've been really good form-wise against the Suns. I do think we can definitely get the win here, because I think our effort on the weekend against Melbourne was certainly a positive. Apart from the result, I thought that was a positive, and we can sort of take that on to next week. And we had only 1 on the bench for most of that game as well, so that shouldn't be an issue for this game. I know we don't have Max King for the rest of the season, which is going to hurt. But structurally, we almost were a better side without him at the start of the year. So it might not be as big of a deal as what some are suggesting. Yeah, I do think we can possibly get the win here. Obviously, the Suns at Heritage Bank are at their best, and they are a tough side to beat there. But we obviously saw their poor performance against Collingwood, which shows that their form in the last month has been pretty pathetic. And obviously, Stuart June now, as a result of it, has been sacked, which is obviously really annoying for myself as a Saints fan, because normally what happens is that whenever an interim coach coaches their first game, for a club, they always seem to get the win. So I feel like that could be a case for this game as well. I'm going to have a bit more faith in the Saints because this is a very desperately needed win. Otherwise, we are going to lose our top 8 position. We could almost lose the spot if we don't win this game against the Suns. I just expect us to come out hot again. We normally play pretty well against the Suns. We played them again earlier this year and won by 50. Screw the fact that there's an interim coach at Heritage Bank. It'll be close, but the Saints will get the job done in a much-needed win by 10 points because, I think our interstate form has been pretty good. Our last 3 wins of the season have all been interstate. Make it 4 in a row. Saints win it by 10. My big call, Saints will trail from any break and win the game. Next up at Marvel, we have Carlton taking on Port Adelaide. This could shape the top 8 in many ways if Carlton could win this game because they're only, 1 win outside the 8 and their percentage is pretty good as well. So they win this game, and honestly the talk of the Blues being back as contenders for finals is now honestly a real thing because, I think with the form that they're in, they can maybe even push into the 8 if, teams around them slip up. They had another really good win in Perth. They seem to be a different side in Perth for some reason. Like they always seem to get the big wins. And again, it was the case against the Dockers by 53 points. And, I don't think they'll be too fearful of this clash. It's sort of like a nothing to lose game for the Carlton in a way because obviously Port Adelaide, they're sitting on 12 wins in a row. They're eventually going to drop one. And they're not going to do a Geelong of what they did last year. I do think the streak does come to an end soon, but it'll be a brave man to tip Carlton here. I know their form has been good now, 3 big wins in a row. But Port, I just think they should get the win over Carlton. They've been the better side all year. But I can definitely see Carlton getting the win here. I think this could be a close game. I think Carlton will be up for the contest, but Port Adelaide at Marvel, they haven't done anything wrong at Marvel so far this year with a perfect track record. I think they'll continue that and win it by 20 points. The Power had a good win, obviously, on the weekend over the Suns, who were challenged for the first half, but definitely got the game back onto their terms. And you probably expect them to win this game. They are the favourites, but I can see Carlton certainly getting the job done. But I think a 20-point win will be a fair tip for mine. My big call, Carlton lead for longer, but lose the game. Next up, we've got at GWS Stadium, the Cats taking on Essendon. The Cats recorded a healthy 62-point win on the weekend against North, where it was pretty much over in the first quarter. They certainly took the foot off the gas a little bit after that, but didn't really need to do too much more. They got a good, healthy win by 62 points, and another standout performance from Grind. Myers over 30 touches, 3 more goal assists. He's looking like he could be on track for winning an All-Australian. And Essendon, well, they were extremely impressive. Almost their best performance, I'd almost say, all year. They applied the pressure. They applied scoreboard pressure as well. I think they scored over 80 in the first half and repeat inside 50s as well. I think, they had 58, but I'm pretty sure that first half they were on 40, which was incredible. Like that first half won in the game, and Adelaide just could not match the pressure that the Bombers applied, particularly in that first half. I thought they deserved to win the game by more than the 18 points, but regardless, it's a really important win for the context of this season. I can see them certainly winning this game because Geelong, they're a vulnerable side at GMHBA against the better sides. We saw that against, obviously, the Giants, who I thought at the time were no chance, and Adelaide also competed well at GMHBA earlier this season. So they're gettable. And I think this is a gettable game for Essendon, but you'd be brave to tip them considering their track record at the Cattery. It's been pretty poor whenever they do play there, and you'll just think the Cats get the job done because they normally win games at GMHBA Stadium. But I will go the Cats here in a very close game. I think this is going to be a really close one where it's going to be a tight all game pretty much, but we're going the Cats by 4 points. My big call, Grind Myers, records 3 or more goal assists yet again. Next up, we've got at the Adelaide Oval, the Crows taking on the Giants. Now, another pretty big game, particularly for the Giants, because as weird as it might sound, if the Giants do win this game, they overtake the Crows on the ladder, and they could honestly push themselves possibly into the finals. The only issue with the Giants at the moment is their percentage. I can see the Giants possibly pulling off a win here because they've won their last 4. They've been in tremendous form, whereas Adelaide, it's the same story for them. Shaky away, good at home, but they go against the sides that they probably should be contending or putting much better performances against. They go missing, and they went missing again for a lot of that game against Essendon. They were lucky to only lose by 3 goals, and very surprised that they still managed to score 97 with the way the game was played out. The Giants did what they needed to do against Hawthorn. I know I said in my tipping video last week that it'd be a certainty, and they'd win it comfortably. It wasn't as comfortable as I thought. The Hawks got it to within a kick, I think, in that last quarter, but I always just, had a feeling that the Giants were going to hold on, which they did. In a game where I didn't really get to see much of. Giants have every right of getting a result here, but the Adelaide Crows at home are a different breed. Because it's not like a bottom-ranked side, I don't think the Crows are going to be as dominant as we've seen from them in recent weeks. Because over their recent games at the Adelaide Oval, they have played North, West Coast. They haven't played the best side. I think it's an important game for Adelaide. They'll bounce back and they should win. And I'll tip the Crows to win it by 17 points. My big call, the Giants score 80 or more points in this game. We only got the 2 Saturday games on the weekend. Not too sure why, to be honest with you. Let me know in the comments if you do know why. The first game, we've got a bit of a dead rubber. Northy, Hawthorn. It means nothing, to be honest with you. It really doesn't mean anything at all. Obviously, North Melbourne, their form lately has been pretty poor. It's really tough right now for North to see many positive signs at the moment for this season. I guess the only good thing about North Melbourne this season has been, the likes of Harry Sheasel, George Wardlow. Their youngsters are looking good, but man, they're going to be taking a bit of time to get back up in the higher ends of the ladder, that's for sure. Hawthorn as well. You can sort of see the direction that they're heading, and I thought they were pretty decent again on the weekend against the Giants, only dropping that game by a few goals, or 13, 15 points was it. So Hawthorn certainly weren't as bad as I actually thought they were going to be, particularly at Giants, where they've always been poor against. And they do have James Sicily back as well. The Hawks are a completely different side when James Sicily is playing. We saw the games against the Lions and also the games against the Saints. So, obviously the North do have the slight advantage, but Hawthorn can play at Marvel. I think Hawks do get the win here because they've been better. But it's a tough one to predict in a way, because I can certainly see North getting an upset win if they do play, similar to how they did play against Essendon or even the Dogs earlier this season. But I think it's a bit of a safer call just to go the Hawks here. And I think they should win, but I can't really see it being anywhere more than 20 points. I'm going Hawthorn by 14 points in a crap game. And my big call will be that both teams combine for 7 or more behinds during the game. And last up, we got last and probably least, to be honest, because this is certainly the least interesting matchup, you would have to say. West Coast and Richmond at Optus. Honestly, no one really will be tuning into this game. I'm not even sure if I'm going to bother putting this one on. West Coast, they still haven't got a win since round 2, I'm pretty sure it is. However, they've seen slightly improved form, even against Brisbane. Everyone thought they were going to lose the game by over 12, 13 goals, which they did, but they didn't allow the Lions to get on top for the entire game, especially that second quarter, third quarter. A bit of a stalemate, I almost felt, after quarter time. Obviously, Brisbane was still the superior side, but, West Coast were okay for parts. They still only ended up scoring like 35 or whatever it was, so still, at the end of the day, a poor game for them. But back at home, the Eagles are, I think we can expect a bit of a response from them, a bit of a decent performance like they showed up against the Saints. Richmond, well, their form's been pretty good, and you can, take away Brisbane loss. They've been a top 8 quality side in the last 5 weeks, form-wise, for sure. And they picked up another really impressive win against Sydney, where they had their backs against the walls for a lot of that game, but they just, gained momentum, got it going their way, and eventually ran over Sydney, kicking the last 3 or 4 goals of the game, winning it by 13 points to give them still a sneaky chance at finals. Players like Dusty Martin, he's obviously, getting back to his best. Who could help, the Tigers get back into finals like he's been doing so often. They really need to treat that game. They really need to treat this game as a percentage booster. And unlike the Saints, they're capable of getting that big percentage boosting win like they did last year. But as much as I think that they'll go into the game hopefully wanting to get a percentage booster, West Coast will be alright against Richmond this game. I actually think they'll play similar to how they played against the Saints. They'll have a decent crowd there as well. I think the home fans will certainly be there like they were in support against St Kilda. But I'm still going to go, obviously, the Tigers to win this game by... Well, it'll be over 40 points, but I don't really think it'll be any higher than that, to be honest with you. I'm going to go 44 points. I'm going to expect a really strong West Coast side in this game, to be honest with you. But, obviously, Richmond still get the win. However, my big call will be that West Coast are within 10 points in the second half. Alrighty, so my tips for the weekend are Sydney, Brisbane, Collingwood, St Kilda, Port Adelaide, Geelong, Adelaide, Hawthorn, and Richmond. Let's see if we can get back-to-back 9 out of 9s this week. I'm honestly not sure if anyone's actually been able to do that this year. I know there would have been a few, but I can't remember anyone actually achieving that, which is certainly something that's very tough. Obviously, we'll go through my competition. Well, I guess I wasn't the only one to record a 9 out of 9 on my tipping comp. 46 of you guys also managed to get the job done. I finished 26. So certainly the best in terms of how I went against everyone else in a round for my competition. 26th spot. Scott Harry, though, best performance, as well as Mighty Blue and Flag Blues. I'd say a lot of Blues fans, because that was sort of the game that sort of threw a lot of people off. A lot of people went Freo, but a lot of Carlton fans did do well with a 9. Will Arnott, an example of another Carlton fan that did well. Charlie, I'm just shouting out a few people that also got 9, and also Scron KFL, who I do know. And then total score as well. I'm pretty sure Christian still remains on top with 109. He got 8. Pasinu also on 108. And then the 2-point gap between second and third with Zacko Footy with 106, as well as Asherland, Jazz Boy, Jack Biddy, Oscar Tuchan, Sento, Link OJ, He also got 9, and then Tex Metz on 106. So those were my tips for round 18, as well as my big calls. Remember, if you've got a punishment you want to see me do, drop it down. If you get it early, you get more likes. You get a greater chance of getting likes. That's how GoatHQ got the most like comment last week. I've got a Goal King challenge and a box break planning to get out later this week, so stay tuned for that. And we're very close to 29k subs as well, so if you've yet to subscribe to the channel, it'd be great if you could do so. We'll hit a great milestone. But anyways, I appreciate everyone for watching. Check out my latest vlog as well, and we'll see you soon in my next video.